Roberts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, and thank you for appearing today and your submission, which I haven't read yet because I understood there's no submission. Could you suggest how the bill should define serious harm? It doesn't define it at the moment, but could you suggest how people should decide serious harm?
I'll defer to Matt on that one.
It's a good question, Senator. In our statement that we submitted yesterday, we make a comment regarding around that we also find that we have concerns around the definition of a threshold for the minimum contribution that would be required for serious harm to come into effect. We support, I guess, the statement from academic from the law school, University of Queensland, Lorraine Finlay, who says that as there is no defined threshold to the minimum contribution that is required, it means that legislation could capture communications that add effectively one inadvertent teaspoon to an ocean of harm. Now, what that means is that it is very unclear as to whether there is a defined limit as to is it this much spread of certain information that would require to be published or to be distributed across the social media platform before these serious harm definitions come into effect. I think what we would say is that we agree that it is at the moment too vague and too unclear.
Thank you. You were very clear in that response, especially your ending summary. Fact checkers now are just plain ridiculed. Some people say, when I put out a post on social media, and I know it to be truthful for a fact, and the fact checker comes along and says this is rubbish or go and look somewhere else, people respond to my post by saying we know it's true now because the fact checker said it's not true. So I mean, how do we? The fact checkers are ridiculed. There's no trust in fact checkers. How can we put trust in fact checkers now when the public have lost trust?
I think that the trust part of the equation is really, really important, and that's part of the misinformation and disinformation campaigns that are out there, is that they're designed to sow trust. It's not actually about proving anything anyway. As one of my members said to me, it's just like it's much harder to prove that something is false than it is to just keep repeating the falsehoods. And that's what's going on. We're seeing just a lot of stuff generated. It's very difficult to tell. It's interesting, I was having a quick look at the Digital Services Act in the European Union, which has a requirement that the digital giants have the ability for users to flag content that is illegal. So that might be terrorism related, and it might be other misinformation and disinformation, and that's connected. At the moment there's a case going on against the CEO of Telegram, which is not a public social media site as such. It's mostly private channels, but I guess when you've got enough people in them, that becomes a public channel. So that's actually handing some power and agency to users to be able to flag content that they are concerned about, and the legislation there, I understand, it means the digital giants are required to respond. Once they've been notified, they have to respond. Now, whether that's a takedown or whether that's another investigation, but I think that's interesting. I'm not necessarily suggesting that is something that, I don't know enough about it to be able to represent what it might mean to our legislation, but I think giving users agency to be able to say, what is this, and question is really important. But I think, Senator Roberts, I think the problem is everybody's now sort of in their bunkers, if you like, right? And we now go looking for what we want to hear rather than, are open. And that's not just a media thing, that's a societal thing. We're actually all sitting there in our own little worlds, and I think that's a bigger issue than we're going to be able to address today, but it is something that is fundamentally why we have little faith in our media, we have little faith in our politicians, and we're starting to really doubt our public institutions, electoral commissions, health services and the like, and this is very, very dangerous, I think we can all agree.
I agree with you. Sorry?
Oh, sorry, Senator, if I could just add briefly that...
Yes, certainly, go ahead.
The need for fact checkers is arguably a symptom of the fact that we have a shrinking media, that we don't have a properly resourced media that is providing quality public interest journalism that can inform the public. I think the retreat to fact checking is a symptom of that fundamental problem.
So it would seem that we agree that the best arbiter of truth and the best arbiters of definition of whether something's harmful or not is free and open debate and have it out in public, which is the way it's always been.
I think free speech is a really important... Well, freedom of speech is really, really important. Obviously, our society has determined there are boundaries to it. I don't know that Australians necessarily think that there should be freedom of speech at all costs. I think, obviously, there are some... there's need for some parameters around that, but that's going to differ from person to person. But freedom of speech, freedom of the media is really, really fundamentally important.
Right.
We'll need to move on, Senator Roberts, if you can just make this one your last question.
Okay, thank you. Donald Trump, whatever your views on him and my views, it doesn't really matter. What we saw was he exposed the mouthpiece media, the mainstream media in America in a very big way. And next thing, the media started feeding on itself. And we've seen since then people wake up to CNN and its ratings plummet. We've seen people like Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson zooming to the top and staying at the top of the ratings. Isn't that some indication that the media is under challenge, as Matt just said?
I don't know that I'm actually in a position to really... I don't know that... I don't think I'm in a position to say that. I think that fundamentally our position for the Australian context is that we need a sustainable media industry that has to be well funded. If there is some kind of new mandatory news bargaining code, we need to ensure that it's length from government and that it's funding public interest journalism. But in terms of the specifics you're talking, Senator, I'm not sure that I'm in a position to cover that.
But you have made it clear, and I agree with you, that journalists need to be consulted.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anything that affects us, nothing about us without us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.